Bismillah. You ready, Jimmy? إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وأحسن هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. You using the same book? Camden. Oh, you didn't bring your book? She had to share his? Huh? Suhail, do you have your book? No, it's all right. So you have to come here. You have to share his book. You can share his book? Can you share his book? No, Suhail's book. Okay. Yes, Camden, you can sit right here. Do me the honors. Yes, sit here. Yes. طيب. We start 7:10 p.m. Sunday, January the 13th, 2019, which agrees with now we're the 7th night of Jumad al-Ula, or Jumad al-Awwal, or Jumad al-Ula, 1440 of the Hijrah Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam. We continue Kitaab At-Tawheed. And we still are in the chapter ولا يزال الحديث موصولا في باب ما جاء أن سبب كفر بني آدم وتركهم دينهم هو الغلو في الصالحين. We continue our chapter, continue our talk. The chapter which comes in the reason for the disbelief in the children of Adam and them leaving off the correct religion is because of extremism in regards to the righteous. Why is he going to put that right there? You'll notice that the narrations that the great Imam, if you look in your books, that he used the narrations of all the clarification of what happened to the previous nations from before and what caused them to fall into destruction. Is it destruction as far as the religion or destruction as far as in physicality or them and their physical bodies? As we know, extremism can lead to both. It can lead to one being destroyed in the correct belief system, and likewise it can be led to destruction as far as him being killed and murdered, as it's been done and it's still being done today. From those who are extreme, who murder and wreak havoc, from those radicalists and extremists, for those who go beyond bounds, and as a result, they end certain people's lives because of extremism. You with me? You sure? So we say, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, you'll find the narrations if you look in your books. We already talked about what happened with the people of Nuh, as we covered that on the narration of Ibn Abbas, and also the narration that we started, which is on the authority on Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu an. On the authority of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu an, you'll find that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Do not exceed the bounds in praising me." As we already talked about, discussed this narration, just as the Christians exceeded the bounds in praising Jesus, the Son of Mary. So the Messenger of Allah said, verily, and he's restricting it. He said, "Innama ana abd." Verily, I am only a servant. I'm only a servant and a worshipper and a slave of Allah. So say, Abdullah wa Rasuluh. Say the slave of Allah or the servant of Allah and his messenger. And we know this narration is authentic, has been extracted in Bukhari or Muslim. It has been extracted in Bukhari. I don't say Muslim to check the takhrij, but it's in Bukhari. But anyway, as we said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam clearly prohibited anyone worshiping him. These are narrations that if anyone tries to tell you, well, you guys worship Muhammad, and we will say that is incorrect. As this narration clearly shows that the Messenger of Allah clarified and made it clear as the sun in the sky, not to exceed the bounds in his praise, just as the Christian exceeded the bounds in their praise of Jesus, the son of Mary, till they exceeded the bounds and they raised him to a level of worship, of being a deity of worship. So the Messenger of Allah is clearly rebuttaling and clarifying not to exceed this bounds in regards to him. Not to raise him from the level of ubudiyah to the level of uluhiyah. Not to raise him from the level of servitude and being a prophet and being a human being and a servant of Allah to the level of being a deity of worship. So all of those who practice, whether they celebrate the Messenger of Allah's birthday or they give him characteristics of Allah, as you will find that some of the Muslims do, that all these are affairs that are what? Totally in opposition against what Allah and his messenger commanded. Rather, you'll find worship of the Messenger of Allah destroys the mission of why he came as a messenger and prophet in the first place. Because the initial reason of his mission was to actualize the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, no more, no less. That's the whole basis of the cause of all the prophets and messengers. And that this mere act destroys the whole reason of why he was sent as a prophet and messenger in the first place. Of him being raised a level to the deity of worship, as we explained. So we said, La tutruni. He said, do not exceed the bounds in praising of me. So you'll find that, oh man, I forgot. I don't know why. No. So it says you'll find what we said. Oh, we already talked about that. I don't need to repeat that again. That the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was all clarifying and refuting in these narrations. And like we said, don't forget about the methodology which comes to Kitaab and Sunnah that a lot of people forget these days, that they are filled with rebuttaling falsehood. The Kitaab and Sunnah came to lay down what was the truth and rebuttal misconceptions and also misunderstandings and also all types of falsehood of what the people believe in regards to prophets and messengers and all the different alterations and distortions and innovations that have been put or installed inside of those previous legislations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. And as a result of it, like we said, the last revelation necessitates that it has to be protected by any type of change of man so the people can attain the proper understanding to worship Allah properly. So a lot of people don't realize that they will say, well, what about the Quran? The Quran, they say, is how you know that it's not been tampered with. And like I said, the proof is in the pudding, for lack of better words. You'll find if you grab a Quran and you go from, like we said, to the corner of that, to the far corners, the distance, the remote distance of Japan, to the North Pole, and you get a mushaf and you compare it to the mushaf right here, it's the same one. There's no different in the Arabic. Not one letter is out of its place. One. Not one letter. Which necessitates that what Allah said in his book and him protecting this revelation from being altered and changed, is distorted, has now been what? Carried out. And all of that necessitates that a person that the last final message, that it remain intact, so no one could come on the day of resurrection and say, I was unaware, or I didn't get that message, or that was what? Conveyed to me in a manner that was altered, or twisted, or distorted. So the final revelation necessitates that it has to stay intact. So everyone can receive the exact same message and nothing will be so-called distorted or changed. Or that was an opinion of man that didn't reach me. So like we said, the final revelation necessitates that it has to be protected. So you'll find in the book of Allah, the last final revelation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in so many ayats refutes falsehood and the false claims that people came with to now say that these things have been ascribed to Allah. From them is having children. Allah rejected this. Allah Ta'ala says that He does not have any children. And He talks about the Jews and the Christians, and they claim that Allah does have loved ones, and He has children. Allah refuted that, rejected that. And Allah Ta'ala says in His book, وقالت, for example, وقالت اليهود والنصارى نحن أبناء الله وأحباؤه قال فلما يعذبكم بذنوبكم بل أنتم بشر مما خلق. That's an ayah. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says in His book, the Jews and the Christians were saying, we are the children of Allah and His loved ones. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala refutes them in another refutation. Says, why does He punish you due to your sins then? Rather, you're just mere people that are just mankind that has been created. And He forgives whom He wills and He punishes who He wills. So Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala refuted that. So why does He punish you due to your sins then? فَلِمَا يُعَذِّبُكُمْ بِذُنُوبِكُمْ. Rather, you're just mere men that's been created. So Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala refutes this notion that He has children and loved ones. He refutes that. So it's to let you know there are all different types of what? Falsehood that's ascribed to Allah. Allah nullifies it. And all the reasons for destructions of the Ummah and the nations of the past, Allah Ta'ala also clarifies the dangers of the people embarked upon the path of destruction from the past, and also commands us to learn their ways so we can avoid embarking upon the same destructive path. And the same thing, or the same affair that destroyed the people of the past, what we're talking about now, which is extremism. And extremism breaks down the different types, as we'll talk about. So in this hadith here, in their books, we already said, this narration clearly rebuttals more falsehood of the Christians. You're not looking at the book. It refutes the falsehood of the people of the book. The falsehood of the people of the book is what, everyone? As the Jews had raised and took Uzair out of his what? Out of his level. And they say he's the son of Allah, as the Christians say that Jesus is the son of Allah. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ clarified the same thing to his what? To his followers. Refuting those who try to now take him above his level and putting him at a level that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala did not give him. Like we said, the Messenger of Allah clearly says in this narration, if you look in the books, do not exceed the bounds in praising me. Like we said, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, as we talked about last class, we said that the rights in regards to Allah and His Messenger break down to three types. The first category was what, everyone? The first category was, number one, was what? That which is what they called khasa'is ilahiyah. The characteristics of worship. And rububiyyah. And lordship. As that is only for Allah Ta'ala alone. For no one else. La malakum muqarrab wa la nabiyyun mursal. Not for any prophet that was sent, nor any angel that's close. Nothing deserves to be worshipped except Allah in regards, like we said, to the characteristics, what they call khasa'is al-uluhiyyah wa rububiyyah. The characteristic of worship and lordship, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is only particularized with those rights. That's it. No one and no one else. One deity, and He doesn't share in those qualities and those characteristics. No one in the creation. No one. No one in the creation. Like we said on the day of resurrection, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is the one alone that will establish the proof and argument on the day of resurrection, saying to everyone who claim rububiyyah or uluhiyyah or worship or lordship, Allah is going to bring them all into what? He's going to bring them all on the day of resurrection and establish the proof. As you see, we talked about in many ayats. Allah Ta'ala will say to Jesus, the son of Mary Himself, did you tell the people to what? Take you and your mother as deities, as worship besides me? Allah has said that in Surah Al-Ma'idah. And they say that Jesus is going to free Himself from their claim. He's going to free themselves from their claim that He's a part of Allah, or a third of three, or He's the Son of God, or what have you. That He's going to what? Reject this notion. And He will say clearly, as it says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, as it says in the ayah in Surah Al-Ma'idah, مَا قُلْتُ لَهُمْ إِلَّا أَمَرْتَنِي بَهِ أَنْ يَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ رَبِّي وَرَبَّكُمْ وَكُنْتُ عَلَيْهِ الشَّهِيدَ مَا دُمْتُمْ فِيهِمْ فَلَمَّا تَوَفَّيْتَنِي كُنْتَ أَنْتَ الرَّقِيبَ عَلَيْهِمْ وَأَنْتَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدٌ إِن تُعَذِّبْهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ عِبَادُكَ وَإِن تَغْفِرْهُمْ فَإِنَّكَ أَنْتَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ قال الله هذا يوم ينفع الصادقين صدقهم. To the end of the ayah. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, He says that when He brings on Jesus and His mother on the day of resurrection, did you tell the people to worship, take you as deities besides me? Allah says in Surah Al-Ma'idah. He says, glory be to you, I did not say to them except what you commanded me. First of all, excuse me, I'm sorry, go back to the first part of the ayah. ما يكون لي أن أقول ما ليس لي بحق. It is not for me to say except what was not for me to say what is not my right. And I forgot the other part of the ayah. ما يكون لي أن أقول ما ليس لي بحق. إن كنت قلت فقد علمت تعلم ما في نفسي ولا أعلم ما في نفسك إنك أنت علام الغيوب ما قلت لهم إلا أمرتني به أن يعبد الله ربي وربكم. He says that as Isa will say, Isa ibn Maryam will say, he says, not for me to say what is not my right. And if I said it, you most definitely know it. You know what's in myself, I don't know what's in yours. So that's to let you know that what? Jesus is not a part of God. He's not a part of a law. Broke off. La. Jesus will come on the day of resurrection affirming absolute power to Allah alone. No one shares in those characteristics except him. As Jesus, the son of Mary, would clearly say, I don't know what's, you know what's in my soul, and in my essence, I don't know what's in yours. And I did not say to them, and command them, except what you told me and commanded me, to worship you alone, my Lord and your Lord. If that's clearly stated in the Bible. As you find that it's clearly stated, in which Jesus, the son of Mary, was worshiping him, which shows that what? That he was bowing and prostrating, to let you know he was what? He was actualizing ubudiyah, servitude and worship. To let you know that he is not part of God. He was worshiping. To let you know he was what? That he was also commanded with actualizing servitude and also slavery of worship of Allah Ta'ala. Clearly. طيب. So now we say, this hadith is a refutation. Again, like we said, reason why I emphasize this, because you'll find there are Muslims out there that always say this, oh, there's no refutations, there's no refutations. If you look in the whole of what we've been taking, all you smell and see and hear is refutations against falsehood. That's all you see and hear in ayat, in books, in hadith, all of this. All you hear is a bunch of what? Clarification and rebuttals against falsehood. What's been ascribed to Allah, and also those who went to the extremes in the message of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. See how my juice charged me back up. But at any rate, like I was saying again, that you'll find in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu that has refuted falsehood in regards to those who went to the extreme to his level. Like we said last class, you have three rights in regards to Allah and his messenger. The first category we already just said, the characteristics of uluhiyyah, rububiyyah. That's only for Allah Ta'ala, as we know. Taib, you have the second category, number 2. Second category, Camden, which you're not writing down, is, or unless you have it already written down from last class, the second category is when pertaining to the message of Allah, which is what? Following him. However, brothers and sisters, we will talk about, discuss at a later time. We will consider that there is from Ahl Ilm that say from Tawheed is from La ilaha illallah, from Tawheed is also what they call Tawheed al-Mutaba'ah. That does exist. So do not say it doesn't, it does. They have, of course we know we got Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, Rububiyyah al-Asma' wa Sifat. There's some of Ahl Ilm that add the other category, which is called Tawheed al-Mutaba'ah. It does exist. Yes. The Tawheed of following the message of Allah. Meaning that you what? You follow him in his sunnah, because we know that no Muslim his shahada, his testimony is valid except by following the sunnah of the Prophet. And you uttering the second part of the testimony, which is to say what? Muhammad Rasulullah. So you'll find that does enter inside the meaning of La ilaha illallah, which we'll discuss later. However, the second category, which is in regards to the rights of the messenger of Allah only, is what, Camden? Which is to have respect, reverence, and what? And honor, respect for the messenger of Allah. Of course, in love. That's the rights of the messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. Without you taking him and raising him the level of worship. Is it clear what I'm saying? But we have what? Reverence, respect, honor, and what? And love for the message of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. Respect, honor, by obeying him and obeying his commands and giving precedence to everything that he said of the over opinions and statements of any human being. That is showing respect and honor and reverence to him, alayhi salatu wasalam, without raising him to the level of worship. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Jayyid. That's for the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is what the Christians did not do. They took him out the second category and put him in the what? In the first. You understand, everyone? They put him in the first of worship, where they fell into extremism, and as a result of it, they was destroyed in their religion. As far as it regards to now, the third category, which is huquq mushtaraka, the third category, which is shared in between, which is not in ibadah, and not in mutaba'ah, but however in iman, in faith, that you have to believe in Allah, and you have to believe also in who? Tayyib, if you just believed in the message of Allah just being a genius, is that enough? Camden, is that enough? If you just said that the message of Allah is just a genius, but not believing actually he was a messenger and the prophet, and that you what? Follow him. Is your Islam valid? You just admitted he's just a mere genius, that's it. Or he had nice manners. Great, the most greatest example to humanity, but you don't believe in his messages. Valid? Your testimony? You being Muslim? Is it valid or not? No, it isn't. It's not. Your iman is not valid, because you'll find that a lot of non-Muslims out there who testify that the message of Allah was the greatest example and the greatest identity that ever lived on earth. You have a lot of Muslims, non-Muslims, that say that. They say he was the most influential personality that ever lived on the face of the earth. Was the Muhammad ibn Abdullah alayhi salatu wasalam. They say he's number one. A lot of kuffar non-Muslims say this. So if they say this and you said this, is that enough for now to validate your Islam? You understand, everyone? You'll find that, like we talked about before, the second most influential personality they say is Paul. Then the third is Jesus. Why is it Paul, as we said? Because the majority of the Christians follow the doctrine of Paul, not Jesus. Majority of the Christians in the whole earth follow the doctrine of what Paul newly introduced. That's what their own scholars say. The own Christians, that not the Christians that jump up and sing songs for 3 or 4 hours, not them. People who actually know their book and read it and study it, and really dissect the verses to know what they mean and what certain things necessitate. They're scholars, not people who jump up and sing songs all day, 3 hours or 4 hours, jumping and singing songs and getting emotionally aroused. You understand? We're not talking about them. We're talking about their own scholars. Their own scholars say, listen, their own scholars, the own scholars of their own Christians, they say that Paul was the most influential personality before Jesus, the son of Mary. Because Paul is the one that had now put the doctrine in of what? That Jesus was a part of a God, or that he was the 33, or that he was the son, and that he came in order to what? Give atonement for the sins of humanity, where he died on the cross and sacrificed himself to save everyone from sin. Those were all fabricated narrations made up by Paul, and the majority of Christians what? Follow that. That's why you see that they say he's the second most influential personality on the earth was Paul. And you know Paul was a what? Criminal. Yes. A lot of people don't know that. If you look to the history of Paul, he was a criminal. You don't know Paul did? He's the one that played in the assassination to kill Jesus, the son of Mary. He was a criminal. And not only that, he was a hypocrite. They call him Bulus, and another narration, I think they call him Bulus, and another one, I forgot the other one. Anyway, Paul, they call him Saul. Saul's Paul, Paul's Saul. طيب. So Paul was a criminal. So you got to think, the most second influential personality in this world was a criminal by the name of Paul, who seeked to alter the message of Jesus, the Son of Mary, and he did it. He carried out what he wanted. Because the majority of the Christians draw close to Allah by what? The doctrine of Paul, which is what? To believe that Jesus has some qualities of a deity, of worship. He has some part of rububiyyah. He has some part of uluhiyyah. He's a part of Allah, and he's a third of three, some of them believe, and they believe that he's the Son of God to the end of it. And that the only way that one will be saved is to accept that Jesus, the one, is that died on the cross and was crucified for the atonement of the sins of mankind. That is the origin of majority of every Christian there is to believe that. Once you have nullified that story, they have nothing left. Am I right or wrong? And it's been proven that it did not what? It didn't happen. Jesus never was crucified. As you look into the stories, as we said, that the Quran, that Allah Ta'ala clarified, that Jesus, he saved them and he foiled the plot of the Jews and the Romans who were also involved. He foiled their plot, and they cast a resemblance over another individual and they killed him in his place. So that's the reason why you'll find, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, all these different types of extremism. The message of Allah protected his ummah from falling into this. That's why he came with this hadith. But just to get back to the third category, because I ain't want to forget, those three categories are very important. So the message of Allah, Allah has a characteristic of rububiyyah, uluhiyyah. Then you have the second category, which is the second category of the follow the message of Allah, and having respect and reverence and love and honor and respect for him and love. And the third category is shared, which is an affair of what? Iman. Iman. You understand, everyone? In Iman. Because there's no way that you can say Muhammadur Rasulullah. You don't say La ilaha illallah except that your shahada is what? Invalid. And there's no way that you can say La ilaha illallah. You don't utter Muhammadur Rasulullah except your shahada is also what? Invalid. So then that means that you have to say what? La ilaha illallah along with what? Muhammadur Rasulullah. Which is to let you know that what? That they are shared as far as in affairs of faith, that you have to believe in both. That's the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this book, وَلِتُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَتُعَزِّرُوهُ وَتُوَقِّرُوهُ وَتُسَبِّحُوهُ بُكْرَةً وَأَصِيلًا. All right? Yeah, all right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in order that you believe in Allah and his messenger. So Allah commanded that you have to have iman in who? Allah, and iman in what? His messenger. وَتُعَزِّرُوهُ وَتُوَقِّرُوهُ وَتُسَبِّحُوهُ بُكْرَةً وَأَصِيلًا. That you also what? That you also revere him, honor him, and then it says in the ayah, glorify him morning and the day. However, if you go back to the tafsir of the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first part of the ayah was talking about the message of Allah, and then the last part of the ayah he was talking about himself. As you'll find that what Ibn Kathir mentions. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. So those are the three rights. Keep in mind. The drink charged me up. Keep in mind. Probably a person would say, what did you drink? I drank a lot. Avocado, kale greens with the stems on it, you name it. I drunk it. Yes. I'm not talking about the kale, the broke off leaf. I'm talking about the actual long leaf like this. I took it and squashed it and drunk it. Yes. At any rate, what I was saying is, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, know that La ilaha illallah, as we talked about, alhamdulillah has a refutation in it. Alhamdulillah, brothers are clear on that. Glad to get you guys accustomed to knowing that the book of Allah and the Sunnah, the message of Allah is filled with refutations against batil, against falsehood. Keep that in mind all the time, because that's true. But at any rate, know when you say La ilaha, if you notice in certain ayat to the book of Allah, in the Sunnah, the message of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam, a person would say, Tayyib, you say that we have and bring iman in Allah and his messenger. But you'll find it as ayat, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just says, فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And he didn't mention Muhammad Rasulullah. He says, have knowledge of La ilaha illallah, and Allah didn't mention Muhammad Rasulullah at the end of the ayah. So how do we understand that? Write this down quickly, because I got a lot of stuff to talk about. That is because just as Islam and Iman, if one was besides the other is only mentioned in one context, then the other one enters inside of it. I mentioned this before. If Islam is mentioned in one ayah, and this is real important, and I don't want you putting your hands in your pockets. I want it on the page or a piece of paper with a pencil. Jade. So it says, Ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, we know that Islam, if it's mentioned by itself in the context, whether it be in the book of Allah or the Sunnah of the Message of Allah, then Iman enters inside of it. Don't worry, I'm going to explain. Write it down. And likewise, vice versa. If Iman is mentioned by itself, then what? Islam goes inside of it. And if they are both mentioned in the same context separately, then they all take its separate own meaning. Is it clear what I'm saying? What do I mean by that? You guys already know the hadith of Jibreel. The hadith of Jibreel, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned Iman and Islam separately, but it was all in one context, right? In one hadith. But he mentioned them separately. Meaning both was mentioned at the same time in one paragraph. That's what I'm going to say, to make it clear. Taib, we know that Islam is the what? Is the actions done outwardly. And Iman is the actions of the heart. Islam is the actions done outwardly, which is what? Salah, Siyam, Zakat, Hajj. All those affairs are what, everyone? Al-Iman, al-A'mal al-Zahira. Iman is the actions of what? A'mal al-Qulub. Which is what, everyone? To believe in Allah and His message. تُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ وَكُتُبِهِ وَرُسُلِهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَتُؤْمِنُ بِالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ. Right, Caden? You understand? Iman is the actions of the heart. What do you mean actions of the heart? To believe in Allah, تُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ, believe in Allah, and مَلَائِكَتِهِ وَكُتُبِهِ, and His angels and His books, and the day of resurrection and hereafter, and to believe in the divine decree, the good of it and the evil of it. What are those outward physical actions, though? Is it? No, it isn't. Then what is it, Camden? What is to believe in Allah and His messenger and His books and His angels? Is those actions of the heart or those actions outward done physically? Which one are they? The actions of the heart. Huh? Jay, that's all I want to know. The heart. Taib. Now, let's get to the other hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, I was commanded to fight the people until they testify that La ilaha illallah. And that I am the messenger of Allah. So that makes it clear. Right? So now we know. We know what Islam and Iman means, right? Separately. Taib. You'll find there are certain contexts where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever, وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. Whoever seeks Islam as a way of life, or a way to profess or worship Allah other than Islam, or if he worships Allah, draws close to Allah, or to God by a way other than Islam, it won't be accepted from him. Taib. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't mention Iman here. He only mentioned what? Islam. So what do we say here? That Iman falls into it. You understand? That Iman is included into it now because Allah only mentioned Islam by itself in this particular context. He didn't mention Iman. He mentioned Islam. So if Islam is mentioned by itself, then Iman what? Goes into it. And if Iman is mentioned by itself in this context, then what? Islam goes into it. Taib. Now I'm going to give another example. Another example, let's get back to the Shahada. Let's get back to now the Shahada. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this book, have knowledge of La ilaha illallah. That's it. Do what do we say? Likewise, it's incumbent upon to have knowledge of what? La ilaha illallah. It's also incumbent upon knowledge to have what? Muhammad Rasulullah. Why? Because even though the shahada of La ilaha illallah was mentioned, Muhammad Rasulullah goes in it. Is it clear what I'm saying? Meaning that it necessitates both, even though Allah only mentioned in this context one aspect. Is it clear what I'm saying or not? Likewise, if the message of Allah, if it was only mentioned in the context that the messenger of Allah, that I'm the messenger of Allah, what would that necessitate? That what? La ilaha illallah also what? Goes into it. None can't exist without the other. And then you'll find that there are contexts where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the message of Allah mention both, where they take their own separate what? Meanings. Such as the hadith of what I just said a couple of minutes ago of Abdullah ibn Umar, that I've been commanded to fight the people until they what? Testify that La ilaha illallah and that I am the message of Allah. Is it clear? So now let's get back into the class. I already talked about it. We don't need it. Right. So all this is to refute the notion of the Muslims who worship the Messenger of Allah, because there is Muslims out there from the deviant sects of the Muslims. And we're not afraid to say it because of paychecks that people might give us. Because there's some callers out there that hate to say this because of the paychecks that they're getting from their followers. But we don't care about that. That's something you're going to have to face with Allah on the day of resurrection, not the Salafis. Now, so we say those who are scared to say there are deviant Muslims out there, yes, there are. Because the message of Allah has clarified this fact, and it's clear as the sun in the sky that there are deviant Muslims out there. It's clear. Even though reality testifies to this. You understand? So a person right now, you mean to tell me a person says that they don't believe that Allah is above the heavens, they're going to say they're from Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah? Where's the Sunnah, where's the Jama'ah? A person right now says Allah is not above the heavens, they're from Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah? Where's the Sunnah, where's the Jama'ah? You understand? A person says right now, Abu Bakr and Umar and all of them all apostated. That you're going to say that they're Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah? Where's the Sunnah? Where's the Jama'ah? Person says, we could go on and on all day. But that's the reason why this is clear to show that there are also people out there that are Muslims that have deviated. And we're not afraid to say it. So for that reason we say, for those Muslims who deviated, and this is a form of deviation, those who raise the message of Allah to the first category of what? Worship. As we talked about what happened with Hamzah Yusuf and his followers. Hamzah Yusuf raises the message of Allah to the level of ubudiyah, to the level of uluhiyah, of worship, of the message of Allah. They raise him to the level of Allah, as we talked about. And we said on many occasions that Hamzah Yusuf encourages his followers to memorize the poetry of the Burda al-Busayri. the Burda Babu Sayyidi, which has in it worship of the Messenger of Allah, and giving him khasa'is of lordship, giving him characteristics of lordship, that the Messenger of Allah knows the unseen, that the Messenger of Allah has the knowledge of the preserved tablet, he has knowledge of the ilm al-lawhi wal-qalam, of the pen when it wrote everything what's going to be in existence, and also the knowledge of the preserved tablet, and that the Messenger of Allah is able to save human beings and save the world and save this existence. All these are affairs that have what? Which clearly shows that the followers who are upon Sufiya from Hamzah Yusuf have all what? Deviated in the mere fundamentals of the religion. So people will say, SubhanAllah, it's not that serious, Akhi, we need to come together. Yeah, Akhi, this is deviation in the fundamentals, and the, if you want to say, for lack of better words, the ABCs of Islam. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? This is deviance in the mere ABCs of Islam. What makes you Muslim? And they want to say, yeah, Akhi, it's not that serious. We talk about it's not that serious. It's something that nullifies your religion. That if I was to die upon, I'll be in hell eternally. It's not that serious, though. It's not. That if I was to die in that state and I raised the message of Allah to the level of worship, then I die in that state, that there is, and it's definitely, if a person dies in that state, his abode will be the hellfire eternally. But it's not that serious, as they say. It's not. Is it serious or is it not serious? That's very serious. Eternal punishment, eternal imprisonment, eternally from this type of act. And they say it's not that serious. Then what is serious then? You understand, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? That's the reason why we focus on these affairs. Stay with me. Suhail, you understand? You understand, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? That's why the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said this, and this is the reason why the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahab, put this in the chapter to show the importance of knowing the Messenger of Allah ﷺ's status, but not to raise him above the level in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give him. And you'll find, like we said, there's so many different ayat. Allah ta'ala already mentions the Messenger of Allah ﷺ in certain events that he alayhi salatu wasalam stood out. No doubt. Like we said, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ spoke directly to Allah above the heavens. Not even the Prophet Musa did that. The Messenger of Allah was raised above the seven heavens, been somewhere that no human being's been. He did something that was given a miracle that was even better than Musa, Prophet Moses. As we know, Moses talked to Allah. Allah spoke directly to Musa. Prophet ﷺ was given something even more of a higher level, which is that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rose him above the seven heavens and talked to him directly behind the hijab of light. And the Prophet ﷺ heard Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's voice, and not only that, Allah ta'ala made the salawat, the prayers, obligatory directly to the Messenger of Allah, without any middleman. Which is to show the high level of the prayers. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give it to Jibreel to give it to the Messenger of Allah. That was a wasita. La. Allah ta'ala took the Messenger of Allah above the seven heavens to the highest heaven where no human being has been, and directly spoke to the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, and gave him this duty of the 5 salawat to let you know the high level of praying 5 times a day. Because Allah made it an obligation directly to the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. However, due to the fact that the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam was given something that was way of a higher level than Musa, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still only described him as being just a mere what? Slave and servant. That's it. That's the reason why you'll find it's as if, rather, this is the reality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was saying, just because he was raised to this level, and that Allah gave him this privilege, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed him to see these affairs in which no human being has seen, you still do not worship him. Even though he had this privilege. Is it clear? you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that in the same context. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi layla min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa liyuriyahu min ayatina. He said, glory be to the one who what? Raised his abd, his servant, his slave, to the highest heaven. To let everyone know, even though he received these special privileges of hearing Allah's voice, being raised above the heavens, seeing the light of Allah, which is his hijab, all these affairs, which are tremendous, that every human being will wish to see and see. That the message of Allah was given that privilege. And despite of that, he, alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah still put him at the level of saying that he is not a deity of worship, even though he was given this privilege. He's still only what? A slave and a servant, and he's been commanded with the worship just like all the other human beings. Is it clear? So those Muslims that now want to grab you and say, let's come now, make dua to the message of Allah, and let's make dua to the message of Allah, because you'll find there are Muslims that do this. From them is, like we said, is Habib Ali Jifri. Habib Ali Jifri, who says permissible to make dua to the message of Allah. It's permissible. You could call, make dua in your prayers, and call on the message of Allah in your prayers. For a person that does that act, you have nullified your Islam. Islam is nullified. And not only that, if you die in that state, that is the sin that will put you eternally in hell forever. Is it clear? Is it clear, Camden? Is it clear, everyone? Clear, Dawood? Jade. Next hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ said, I warn you of ghulu. I warn you of extremism. He said, there's a point that even Ibn Uthaymeen, before I start on this hadith, he said, I have seen with my own eyes. He said, people that was making dua. He said, when we were right in front of the Kaaba, and their back was turned towards the Kaaba, and they were what? Raising and making dua towards Medina. That's how shaitan plays with people due to their ignorance, to that level. Can you imagine someone at the Kaaba with their back turned towards it and they make a dua facing Medina? That extremism took them to that extent. Them in their mind thinking that the grave and the message of Allah, make a dua to the message of Allah, that love and their emotions took them to this extreme, to the point where their whole back is towards the Kaaba and they're facing the grave of the message of Allah while they're in Mecca. To think that that's more virtuous than facing the Kaaba and making dua to Allah. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is this correct, or this action is incorrect, Camden? Huh? What you say? It's incorrect. Jade. Caden, is this polytheism? Someone right now was at Mecca, and their back was towards the Kaaba, and they was facing the Medina, making dua to the message of Allah. Is this polytheism or not? Yes, it is. Absolutely. This is polytheism. If you do this act, it doesn't matter if it's the message of Allah or anyone else. If you do an act like this, Islam is nullified. Islam is nullified. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Islam is nullified. You die in that state, you'll be in an eternal imprisonment of hell forever. Because this is the reason why all the prophets and the messengers came to what? To nullify this act. Get a chair. We have no more other chairs? That was real nice. Oh, Suhail. Say it again. I don't know where the chairs are. I don't think we have any more. I think some in my office. Let's get it later. Focus. So we say, the next narration you'll find, the message of Allah said, if you look at your books, look in the books, what does it say now? The message of Allah ﷺ said, I warn you of extremism. I warn you of extremism. For verily was destroyed those from before you is extremism. As we know that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said this profound, tremendous statement on the time or during the times of Hajj, on his farewell pilgrimage. And we know that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ told Ibn Abbas, as it says in the narration here, but it doesn't tell you the full narration. He said, "Ulqut li or halumma li hasa or halum al-qut li hasa or hasayat." He said to Ibn Abbas, he said, "Halum al-qut li hasayat." He said, "Oh Ibn Abbas, gather for me little pebbles." Hasayat, hasal khadf. He said, "Gather for me little pebbles." The pebbles that is of the fingertips that can be plucked. Al-khadf. So that's like this big, not real small ones. They're not that big. Because khadf in the Arabic language means to pluck. Khadf. Even though the Messenger of Allah prohibited that too. Not to do khadf. There's a narration that talks about that on the authority of Abdullah ibn Mughaffal. I think it is. He said he prohibited what they call khadf. Plucking rocks. But at any rate, plucking it meaning that if you pluck it, it might hurt someone. It might put their eye out or it might harm an individual. So he prohibited what they call plucking a rock. That's something later, don't worry about that. But at any rate, the Messenger of Allah told Ibn Abbas, he said, "Ulqut li hasa hasal khadf." Look for me little pebbles, the pebbles that could be plucked with. So he said that I gathered, أَنَا قْلَقَطْتُ لَهُ حَصَيَاتٍ فَوَضَعَهُنْ فِي كَفَّةٍ أو في رواية فَنَفَضَهُنْ فِي كَفَّةٍ فَقَالَ أَمْثَالَ هَؤُلَاءِ فَارْمُوا وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالْغُلُوَّ فَإِنَّمَا أَهْلَكَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمُ الْغُلُوَّ. To the end of the hadith. So when Ibn Abbas said, فَلَقَطْتُ لَهُ سَبْعَ حَصَيَاتٍ فَوَضَعَهُنْ صلى الله عليه وسلم في كفه ثم قال عند ذلك أمثال هؤلاء فرموا. As it says in the narration. He said in the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, I gathered those 7 little small pebbles for the Messenger of Allah. He said he took the pebbles and he put them in my hand. As we know, as I'm sure that everyone has made Hajj, they know that there's a ritual of Hajj at the end. That you're supposed to throw what they call the jamarat or aqab al-jamarat. Jamarat al-thalath, or the 3 jamarat, which is the last ritual in Hajj, where you take little pebbles and you throw them. You don't hurl them. You take it and you throw it like that. You don't try to throw it like a baseball and try to take somebody's head off of their eye out. That is the ghulu that the Messenger of Allah was talking about. You take the pebble and you toss it. Toss it gently. Okay, everyone? So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, similar like these, throw the rocks. These little small pebbles, toss them like that. I warn you of extremism. Verily what destroyed those from before you is extremism. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ gave the warning on the time of Hajj. And if certain people was to read these narrations, I'm sure they would stop throwing their shoes. You see, there are very strange, very, very, very strange things you'll find in Hajj. Shoes being thrown, rocks and boulders being thrown, clothes being thrown, any object they can find. So as if a messenger of Allah knew these type of things were going to what? Take place. That the people were going to exceed the bounds. And they were what? Going to take something to a whole other level. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ protected the ummah with all these narrations to not fall into these types of extremism. So when he said this, alayhi salatu wasalam, as if now he was what? He was doing and giving a fortification or protection for his ummah. Not to do these what? Or indulge in something that's extreme. Extremism, brothers and sisters, breaks down to 3 in a lot of different categories. From the first category of extremism is extremism in belief system. You have extremism in belief system. That's number 1. You have extremism in worship. It's number 2. You have extremism in interactions and transactions with people, or you want to say for interaction. And you have extremism in what they call adat, extremism in customary habitual practices. You'll say traditional traditions. We'll talk about that in a minute, inshallah. Adat means like habitual manners or habitual affairs, which this basically means traditions. So extremism, which you have not written down yet, extremism breaks down into what? Different categories. You have extremism, firstly, in belief system. Then you have extremism in worship. You have extremism in interaction and dealings with people. I'll talk about that in a minute. And you have extremism in adat, in traditional customs, if you want to say for lack of better words. It's the 4th. Traditional custom. What is extremism in belief system, brothers and sisters? Extremism in belief. It's already, I think it's self-explanatory. We already talked about some examples of that already. Right? I've been saying that for the past 3, 4, 5 lessons. I'll give an example. There's other examples of belief. From the deviant sects of the Muslims that went into the extremes of, for example, of the affairs of affirmation in regards to the names and the attributes of Allah. As a matter of fact, let's start with this part first. I didn't even know he was there. As far as extremism in regards to the in regards to negation and affirmation in the names and the attributes of Allah. What do I mean by that? You'll have people out there who is on one side of an extreme, where they say that they glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the point where they negate from Him everything. Allah has no characteristics and He has no attributes. In the so-called name of glorification and Him raising above what does not befit Him, as they say. So they negate His characteristics. They say Allah does not see everything, Allah does not hear everything, Allah does not have no knowledge of everything, Allah doesn't have these characteristics. What's your reason why you went to this extreme? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already gives us a moderate belief system. He said nothing is similar to Him. He's all hearing and all seeing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is refuting one extreme, and He's also refuting another extreme. Rather in the ayat, and I'll talk about this, write this down right quick, everyone. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, nothing is similar to Him. He is all hearing and all seeing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that one ayat is refuting 2 types of extremes. Those who went in one extreme and then they went to another extreme. When He says nothing is similar to Him, He's refuting those who resemble Him with the creation. You'll find there are people out there that resemble Allah with His creation. All you got to do is the Christians, they do it all day. They write pictures of Jesus, and this is supposed to be a picture of God with this long little beard, like an old man with this huge staff in the clouds. That is the type of resemblance in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has what? Prohibited. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? As if Allah was a man, it was Allah ta'ala like a human being with this long beard, with this staff, to the end of it. Right? Then you'll find there are Muslims out there from the past, and still to this day, even though they don't believe it, which I'll explain later. There was a deviant sect called the Mushabbiha in the past. They existed. That there was as they said, there was a firqatun qa'imatun bi nafsiha tusamma mushabbiha. There was an actual deviant sect in the past that was actually called the resemblers, meaning those who resemble Allah with His creation and His name and His attributes. That type of group, of course, is non-existent today, even though not to say that they will come back again. Even though the Asha'ira, they do fall into what the Mushabbiha fell into. But they're not called Mushabbiha, they're called Asha'ira. We're talking about a firqatun qa'imatun bi nafsiha tusamma mushabbiha. La tujad. There is not a group specifically called the Mushabbiha these days, even though their ideologies are being practiced by other deviant sects. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? طيب. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so now we're talking about extremism. Keep in mind, extremism in the aspect of belief. طيب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, there's nothing similar to Him, and He's Samir and He's Basir. About to stop. He's all hearing and He's all what? Seeing. There's nothing similar to Allah. He's all hearing and He's all seeing. In that ayah, which is in Surah Shura, I think it's in Surah Shura, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, nothing is similar to Him. So Allah ta'ala is refuting another sect, those who resemble Allah with His creation. Is it clear what I'm saying? When we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resembles His creation by saying this statement, so I can make it clear. If you say, Caden, out of your hand, my hand is like Allah's hand, that's resemblance. Is it clear? My face is like Allah's face, that's resemblance. My foot is like Allah's foot, that's resemblance. If you say that the foot of the creation does not resemble the foot of the Creator, but at the same time we both affirm that Allah has a face and that the creation has a face, this is not resemblance. You understand, everyone? Resemblance is to say my face is like your face. My hand is like your hand. That is resemblance. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is refuting this notion. And He's refuting those who went into the extremes in their belief system. Because this is a type of extremism. When you resemble Allah with the creation by saying my hand is like Allah's hand, or my face is like Allah's face, and so on and so forth. Or another type of resemblance, which is to say that, which is to say, for example, that Allah Ta'ala, that so and so from the human beings of the creation can create or sustain or can hear everything or see everything and can protect the whole existence. This is also a form of resemblance. And this is the polytheism that a lot of the religions that are false fall into. When you say and you pray to Buddha, saying, "Oh Buddha, make my life better. Oh Buddha, make my life and make me a strong person. Remove my trials and my hardships from me." You have resembled Buddha with Allah. That's another form of resemblance. When you say out of your mouth in your prayers, "Thank you, Jesus, for giving us this food. Thank you, Jesus, for giving us what we have on our tables today. May you bless us, hear and hear our prayers." You have resembled Jesus with Allah in His rububiyyah and in His what? In His uluhiyyah. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying so far? All this is a type of resemblance, which is a form of extremism in the affairs of the belief system. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? Then you have the last part of the ayah. If you look in your books, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ, and He is all hearing, He is all what? Seeing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refutes the mushabbiha, the resemblers, in all the two categories that they are. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refutes another sect that went into another type of extreme. Those who what? Those who what? Say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no attributes. So you'll find the opposite side extreme resemble Allah with the creation in His names and attributes. So they affirm for it, but they said they resemble the creation. So Allah has a hand, but it's like the creation, the hand of the creation. It's a face, but he has a face. So they affirmed it, but they went into the extremes in the affirmation of it until they what? They resembled Allah with the creation. Then you'll have the opposite side of the extreme from the Muslims. Those who say, they want to, okay, we don't say that Allah is like the creation, but we just absolutely what? Negate it. Allah doesn't have anything. He doesn't have a face. He doesn't have a hand. He doesn't ascend above he didn't ascend above the Arsh. He doesn't descend at the third part of the night. He will not come on the day of resurrection. He doesn't speak to anyone. His speaking means it's done inwardly in himself. No one can hear it to the end of it. That's another type of extreme. Where they have not, where they what? Negated. So Allah refuted them by saying he's all hearing and all seeing. To say, oh, negate, so people, don't go to one extreme where you resemble him with the creation, and don't go to the other extreme where you now negate his what? His attributes and his characteristics that befits him. Because that's also, you went from one extreme to another extreme. So you'll find that Allah has obliged upon those who traverse the correct path is to be in the middle. By you saying what? Affirming what Allah affirmed for himself and affirming what the messenger affirmed for him without any negation and without any resemblance and without any distortion and without any I say ما أثبت الله ما أثبت لنفسه وما أثبت له رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم من غير تأويل ولا من غير تعطيل ولا تمثيل ولا نعم ولا تكييف ولا تأويل. Alhamdulillah, I just remembered. He said without negating their characteristics and without resembling them and without saying how it is and not distorting its meanings. So by that principle, you're right in the middle, whereas we're in the middle. So now we're moderate. We say that Allah has a hand. Oh, excuse me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rather Allah wa ta'ala has two hands, and both of his hands are right hands. And when we hear the word two hands, because a person would say, how is Allah to have two hands? Because Allah said it about himself. He has two hands. And both of his hands are right hands. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that he has two hands, we affirm it by saying those two hands do not resemble the two hands of the what? Of the creation. So we affirmed it without going to the what? To the extreme where we resembled it with the creation. Those who now went to the opposite side of the extreme, they say, no, Allah doesn't have two hands at all. Rather, it means, for example, two powers. So they went to another extreme. Ahlul Sunnah say, no. We say those two hands, that they mean what? Two hands. And we do not negate it by saying that they mean two powers. Rather, we're in the middle and we affirm what Allah has affirmed for himself. A person would say, what's your proof to say that they're actually true hands or two hands in which they are hands which we could call them hands? Because they're narrations where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book that he وَيَوْمَ نَطْوِي السَّمَاءَ كَطَيِّ السِّجِلِّ لِلْكُتُبِ كَمَا بَدَأْنَا أَوَّلَ خَلْقٍ نُعِيدُ وَعْدًا عَلَيْنَا إِنَّا كُنَّ فَاعِلِينَ. And another ayah. وَمَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدَرِهِ وَالْأَرْضُ جَمِيعًا قَبَضَتْهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتُ مَطْوِيَّاتٌ بِيَمِينِهِ subhanahu wa ta'ala amma yushrikun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, on the day that we will roll up the seven heavens and the earth, كَطَيِّ السِّجِلِّ لِلْكُتُبِ, like a page of what? Of scrolls. Allah will roll it up. Let's now go back to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he gave the tafsir of it. He said that Allah will what? It's in the Sahihain. As Ibn Kathir mentions, it says that Allah Ta'ala will take the seven heavens and the seven earths, because there are seven earths also, 7 heavens and that which is the distance between them. And we know from one heaven to another heaven is what? The distance of 500 years between each heaven. Allah will take all of that of what we perceive as great distance, and He will take them in the 7 earths, and He will all make it in His right hand. طيب. There's another ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this book, they did not glorify Allah as He ought to be glorified. And on the earth, all of it, will be in His grip. And also the heavens will be folded up in His right hand. Also, we have the narrations of the Prophet ﷺ. He said that the hearts of the qulub of the children of Adam is between 2 fingers of the fingers of Ar-Rahman. He flips it how He wills. Also, we have the narration of the Prophet ﷺ that he said that he takes the sadaqat with his right hand and he increases it. Also, likewise, we have narrations where Allah also ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also likewise. I'm sorry. Just to sum it all up, all these different of what we understand, as you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam even mentioned this. He said that all of this necessitates that this is a true hand. Because there's no hand that has fingers that could grip, that will roll up, that takes, that gives to the creation. It will take sadaqat, and that narrations that say He will fold up, and that He will grip, and that He will flip, and that He flips hearts. All these are narrations to show that it's a true hand, and it's not metaphoric. Is it now a hand that resembles the creation? No, it isn't. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? You'll find that Ahl Sunnah that they say, wal-akhidh, wal-ata, wal-tay, wal-akhidh. And also Allah Ta'ala that He spreads, now, that all these of 2 right hands and the fingers of Ar-Rahman, all these are indications that they are truly what? Truly hands. They're 2 true hands of Allah, and they're not metaphoric. They are true hands. He said there's no way in the world you can say something is metaphoric or that means 2 powers for all these narrations that proves that the hands of Allah, that it what? Has these other things, what we understand as actions, such as giving, taking, gripping, rolling up, pulling up, rolling up, taking, gripping, and also gripping up people out of the hellfire. I don't move my hand so nobody can resemble it, but also the narration with the Prophet ﷺ talked about that Allah Ta'ala will grip people out of the hellfire. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَقْبِضُ قَبْضَةً فَيُخْرِجُ مِنْهَا أَقْوَامًا لَمْ يَعْمَلُوا خَيْرًا قَدْ قَدْ عَدُوا حَمَمًا. To the end of the narration, right, everyone? That the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah will grip and take people out of the hellfire by a grip that He will what? That He will do on the day of resurrection. So he says, Shaykh al-Islam was refuting the notion that Allah doesn't have true hands. He said that all of this necessitates that this is your true hands. Gripping and folding and gripping and taking and giving and all that's nothing but except what? Nothing that say that it's except what, everyone? It's a true hand. But is it a hand like our hands? No, it isn't. A person would say, well, why can't we try to understand it? Because you cannot understand something that can hear everything simultaneously. And I keep saying this to everyone. Try to understand something or essence that can hear everything in the heavens and the earth at the same time. I can hear everything at the same time. Nothing escapes him in the heavens and the earth. Can you understand it? Can you understand that there's a what? There's an essence that can understand all the languages of every single language simultaneously at the same time? Can you, I'm asking you now, put in your mind, can you understand that there's an essence that can understand languages all at the same time? And that can see everything at the same time, everything in the heavens and earth? Can you understand it? Can you comprehend it? which is to let you know mentally that your brain is bounded to a certain what? Degree. Because I'm asking everyone in this room, can you see everything in the heavens and earth at the same time? Like, tell me what the guy in the store is saying across the street right now. You have no idea. To let you know what? That your senses in your brain is bounded. Allah created our brains to go to a certain extent, no more, no less. That's it. That's your boundary. Like, so if you don't know how these characteristics are, how do you think you can fathom the characteristics of Allah in His essence? You cannot even know what your own soul was made out of. How can you think that Allah Ta'ala could be what? Fathom in His essence and existence. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So extremism, type of extremism and belief is just like the example I just give you guys. And there's more examples to come. We'll stop here. All right. I'm done, Kim. Is there any other questions? Go ahead. Tafadhal, Suhail.